We move on to second session, and I invite chairpersons of the second session, Dr. Girish Gupta. He is a surgeon, Rear Admiral, current retired now with Vishish Seva Medal, currently head of Department of Neonatology, faculty in charge research in SGPGI Lucknow. And accompanying him as a co-chairperson is Dr. Kiran More, who is attending and consultant, Division of Neonatology, Assistant Professor of Clinical Pediatrics at Weill Cornell Medicine, Siddha Medicine, Doha, Qatar. Welcome both the chairpersons, and please take over the session. We are starting with presentation from KEM Mumbai.
Thank you, Deepak, for this, and thank you, Anina, for inviting for this session. I'm really glad to share the podium with Dr. Girish. So over to you, sir, Girish Gupta, sir.
I would like to compliment Professor Ashok Deorari to start such a wonderful activity, which is going to change the future of India as far as the COVID management is concerned, both in the country and beyond. Secondly, the opening session has put a right platform. Registry is so crucial, and infographics have been just wonderful. So now the platform is really very good. Now from theory, it is the experience which makes all the difference. It is a high time that we must start sharing our experience. And in the case of COVID, the Maharashtra has taken a fair amount of lead. So we would look forward to listening from Maharashtra first and see what and challenges they have faced. With this opening remark, I will invite the first topic, which is the introductory from Professor Praveen Kumar, PI Chandigarh. Request Professor Praveen to come on.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Girish. I think most of the things have been taken care of already by Professor Deorari. And so the basic idea was that, we have been discussing a lot of theoretical aspects of COVID in different systems. We have had online sessions, etc. And still, as Dr. Deorari rightly listed, we do not know too many things about it. But what we thought, it has been nearly 3 to 4 months now, and a lot of centers in India have had a huge experience of managing newborns to mothers with COVID or newborns who report directly to the emergency. And we believe that this data ultimately will be published, but it will be long process, much delayed. So we needed a platform where we could learn firsthand from the people who are managing this show, what has been their experience so far, so that we can improve our practices and gain more confidence, because this is not ending tomorrow. COVID is going to continue for long time to come. And hence, two kinds of experience we are wanting to learn from people. First is the quantitative data, which means how many cases we have seen of different types. And the second, and even more important, is the qualitative learnings in terms of logistics, in terms of organizing the services, creating the isolations, carving out manpower from within the manpower, in spite of that fact that people have to be given off following COVID duties, or they themselves might be affected. And then keeping up the morale of the workforce in these tough times, when the leaders themselves might be stressed out because everybody has to manage home front as well as the professional front. So we thought we would be able to learn a lot. And I'm very glad that we have a lot of centers, both government and private, from Mumbai and Maharashtra. And then in subsequent sessions, we have people from Delhi, West Bengal, Chennai, and then few glimpses from Pune and a couple of other places. So I'm sure this will give us a lot of learning experience. And without wasting much time, I would pass on back to the chairpersons to start with the first presentation. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Praveen, for introducing the topic. Next, we have a presentation, neonatal COVID content at KEM Mumbai. We are running through experiences and challenges faced. And on this, we have joined Masker Hands and Professor Ruchi Nanavati to share their experience from State GSM in KM Hospital, Mumbai. Over to Mumbai Group. KM.
I'm Dwayne Mask, and I'm going to be presenting a COVID conundrum, learning through experience and challenge. From mid-April to the end of June, we've had a total of 600 mothers, that is mothers with a history of contact with COVID patients, mothers with a history of fever and respiratory symptoms, or mothers who've been asymptomatic and living in a containment zone. Of these 617 suspect mothers, 141, that's 22.8%, tested positive. Of the 124 mothers whose babies came to the isolation area, 22% had fever and barely 12% had cough. 15% had documented. Most common indication for testing mothers was asymptomatic mothers who came from containment zones. 45% of the mothers delivered vaginally, and a little over 50% were delivered by LSES. Our COVID section had two parts. The COVID suspect section, we've had a total of 120 neonates admitted to the COVID NICU. That's 124 mothers with 4 sets of twins. Of 116 were inborn and 12 were outborn. And of these, by RT-PCR or nasopharyngeal swabs. So 128, 50.7% were male with a mean gestation age of 37, ranging from 20 all the way to 41 weeks. 6% of our babies were low birth weight with a mean weight of 2,485 grams, ranging from 988 to 4,000 grams. 28.9% of our babies were small for gestation age. Babies required resuscitation, of which 8 required intermittent positive pressure resuscitation. This incidence is similar to the non-COVID babies as well. 8 babies had an APGAR score less than 7 at 1 minute. A little under 65% of our newborns were breastfed, with the remaining being babies who were shifted to the NICU being less than 34 weeks of gestation age, or being sent to the NICU for other indications like HI monitoring and RDS monitoring. Of the total of 70 neonates who tested positive up to the 1st of July 2020, 3 neonates presented with respiratory distress, one of whom was a 30-week non-steroided mother whose baby had RDS, and 2 were term babies with TTNB. 2 babies had cough and lethargy. None of our neonates had fever as a presentation. The mean WBC count was 10,064, with 2 babies having leukopenia and no babies having leukocytosis. 2 babies had lymphopenia with a mean lymphocyte percentage of 39%. 7 babies were documented to have thrombocytopenia, mild cytopenia, with a mean value of 1.7. 4 babies had an elevated AST level and 10 babies elevated A, and 15 and 16 neonates had elevated creatinine kinase and CKD levels respectively. However, none of evidence of the mean LDH value was 1,276. The LDH was elevated in 12 neonates. The X-ray was abnormal in 2 neonates, with 1 each having pneumonia and RDS. Neonates who came up to the isolation area, all 17 received supportive care in the form of feeding and routine monitoring. 8 babies received antibiotics. Baby with RDS discharged home. 5 neonates are still currently admitted and undergoing treatment. We've had no deaths among the COVID positive babies. I now hand over to Dr. Ruchi Nanavati ma'am to continue with the presentation.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I thank Dr. Ashok Devrari and Dr. Praveen Kumar for organizing today's WebEx meeting and providing us an opportunity to learn from each other. So when I look back over last 4 months of the pandemic, Really, our strengths are that we had a planned approach. We had standard operating procedures present for the department right on 23rd of April. We had a well-planned isolation ward within NICU complex managed by NICU residents and nurses. We also managed to get the intubation boxes designed with our IIT friends. And in KM, we received lots of donations from friends, alumni, and NGOs, in addition to everything provided by municipal corporation. Now, this slide shows you that the SOP is what we had made for the unit and lot of teaching material. Now, when we look at the strength, what have the lessons we have learned from maternal experience, what have we learned is that the mothers who tested positive, none of them had fever or cough as a presenting manifestation, very less percentage. And most of the mothers who tested positive because they came from the containment zone. So our main indication for testing the mothers is that the mothers coming from the containment zone. And in these mothers, we saw that there was no increase in the obstetric complication. Now, when we look at the neonatal experience, what we learn is that the mode of presentation is transmission is postnatal. Majority of the neonates are asymptomatic, and all of them had a milder disease. The pneumonia was not seen. The aerosol generation by the neonates is minimum. None of our residents in NICU turned positive over last 4 months. The neonates actually remained positive for a period longer than the mother. We had 3 neonates. So what we learn is that you require to maintain the standard operating care for these babies. When we look at the challenges which are faced by us, the main challenge is that how do you organize your infrastructure of setting and COVID NICU? The negative pressure NICU is yet to be done. And even as far as the air handling unit is concerned, changing the cycles for a part of NICU, which we have a isolation section and COVID positive NICU, the changing cycles for a part of NICU is difficult. When we look at the challenges faced for the human resource, we have frequent changing of nurses because the KM nurses are posted in other areas. They are posted in other hospitals outside KM. So we have the non-neonatal nurses also working in NICU, and at times this becomes challenging. The residents are quarantined frequently because their roommates from other specialties have turned positive. So we almost have one or two residents going in. And the labor staff, especially servants, there is a very severe shortage because the trains are not working. The relatives also we had issue because relatives are not allowed in NICU, and that's why on the healthcare worker there is more overload. When we look at the challenges at the patient care, we do the repeat swab at 72 hours was not possible as a hospital policy. So we do the swab at the end of 24 to 48 hours. The exclusive breastfeeding also was difficult, as mentioned by Dr. Dwayne, because as a policy in our hospital, the mothers are transferred to COVID care center and the babies are not allowed in COVID care center. So if the mother is delivered vaginally, she is transferred to COVID care center on day 3. And if it is LSCS, the mother is transferred to COVID care center on day 5, because we have a huge overload in our hospital. The KMC could not be done in NICU as the relatives we are not allowing in NICU because we are not testing the relatives in our hospital. The ROP screen also got affected during the COVID pandemic, and same is with screening, which was temporarily discontinued. The other challenges we faced were that the milk donation for the human milk bank reduced significantly because most of the mothers were discharged early, or they were the positive mothers were transferred to COVID care center. And other thing is that the teaching activities declined significantly because we had shortage of residents, and we had an NICU and postnatal ward physically separate in 2 different buildings. So we required 2 different teams, and that affected our teaching program significantly. So the next. So if we actually look at the next slide, So if we look at what are our future plans, we are planning to have the version 2 of our SOP. We are restarting newborn screening, which we have just started about last week. We are reviving the milk collection and human milk bank processing, and we need to share and learn from each other's experience. So we can start in this pandemic with small efforts and then.
At the outset, I would like to thank the NNF to give us an opportunity to share our data. I'm going to talk on challenges in setting up COVID NICU in a dedicated COVID hospital. I head the pediatrics and neonatal division, and sharing our data would be Dr. Poonam Vade, Associate Professor. So on 18th of April, Nair Hospital was made into a dedicated COVID hospital. It in fact came to us as a shock. The staff and the residents were all in total shock. There was virtually no warning or no advance preparation. This was the first time in India that a super specialty hospital in a medical college was totally converted into a dedicated facility for COVID. And this meant that we had to have dramatic and overnight changes in the hospital layout, organization. We were to get some resources. There had to be systems and procedures to be put in line. Everything seemed to be in turmoil. And added on to this was the environment of fear, ignorance, and uncertainty. There was a pandemic that was going on, and Mumbai seemed to be the epicenter of it. The COVID operation started, and streams of patients started flowing in. And to tell you the truth, as soon as on 18th we were informed that it is a totally COVID hospital, precisely in 1 hour, I started getting calls for taking babies, and we were not ready at all. I'm happy to inform, as of today, we have over 450 COVID mothers, babies that have delivered at our center, and there has been a lot of positivity and a positive attitude, which has also been reported by the media. It was almost like a scorecard, completing 100 deliveries, 200, 300, and I'm happy to say that today we have had the 450th delivery in the morning at 8:15. So our approach consisted of change of infrastructure, operating procedures and protocols, and to arrange for human resources to have the best management. Our approach for the infrastructure, we were already having babies born to non-COVID mothers, and so we had a parallel COVID and non-COVID operations for the first 10 days. We had separate OTs, wards, labor room for suspect and confirmed COVID cases. In fact, we had to go down to make even separate lifts, separate pathways to avoid contamination. We had to change the layout of cradles to maintain social distancing. Improved air circulation in wards and labor room became a big dilemma. And therefore, we have, in the meanwhile, added additional exhaust facilities. Areas were demarked for donning and doffing, and procurement of protective gear and disposals was immediately done. The operating practices and protocols, as we all know that in early April, there was a lack of clarity in the SOPs and in the protocols. There were information gaps. Added on to all this were the changing guidelines being changed overnight, especially from the ICMR, the Ministry of Health. We developed our own municipal corporation COVID protocols with the help of our sister institutes, including KEM, Sion, Cooper, etc. We also took help from the NNF Kerala, the IAP and the NNF guidelines, FOXI, ICMR, and we referred to WHO and the CDC guidelines. The human resources and the best way in a situation of pandemic is everybody works as a team. At our center, we don't have a neonatology unit per se, we have a division. So pediatrics and neonatology got together as a team, and the unit system was abolished. All leaves were cancelled, all residents were called back, especially those who had gone for exam leaves, and we made different rosters, but we stuck on to our 6-hourly duties with 7 days working and 7 days quarantine. And this was recommended by the government for COVID hospitals and those working in COVID areas. The on-duty residents were all accommodated at Nair Hospital itself, whereas the quarantined residents were put up in the nearby hotels. Training programs started on a war footing for all the healthcare workers, whether it was hand washing, social distancing, mask using, etc. Counseling and psychological support to all our frontline workers formed an essential part of the training. Adding on to the other challenges and the issues, fear, apprehension, like I said before, and scare and information gaps continued. There was a big gap between the supply and the demand of protective gear, disposables. Nurses and servants, IRBs, technicians were just not coming in. And they were not coming in because both added by the fear as well as lack of train services and transport services. Adding on to all this was the mental and physical exhaustion of the healthcare workers. Initially, for almost a month, we had 2 separate labor rooms on separate floors, and this issue was later sorted out. Newborn care was being given in the wards itself. A makeshift NICU along with the PICU was made. Immunization, one of the very important challenges that we faced, which is the birthright of the baby. No nurse was willing to go in wards on this issue itself. Maintaining records was another big task. On to all this, the lack of family support and no relatives for the mothers made things become even harder. Our routine services were disrupted. KMC services and the wards were closed. We have a dedicated KMC ward. It got closed down. The human milk bank, especially the collection and pasteurization, stopped. We continued with dispensing human milk to all the needy children. Routine immunization in the OPDs, follow-up clinics, neonatal screening program through the NCGM for the 4 essential illnesses was stopped. Neonatal hearing, pulse oximetry, and ROP screening got markedly disrupted, and it took us time to come back on gear. So our decision, with the aim of giving the best to the mother and baby in the circumstances that we took decisions in the new layout of the existing NICU and postnatal wards, bedding in, no separation of mothers and babies as far as possible, encouraged mothers to look after exclusively in the NICUs and the postnatal wards, exclusive breastfeeding, separate designated areas in the NICU for COVID negative babies and COVID positive babies. We kept 5 reserved cradles for COVID positive babies and 10 for the COVID negatives with minimum handling. The Nair NICU protocol, I will not go into details and I'll just mention a few things. Stable babies were all roomed in and there was bedding in. Symptomatic babies were admitted in the COVID NICU. No extra specific medicine was recommended for these babies except for giving them symptomatic treatment. Investigations besides doing the routine investigations in the COVID positives, and X-ray test was must for all the COVID positive neonates. Immunization, irrespective of COVID status, was given at birth itself. Discharge criteria, we followed the NNF guidelines. And the type of swab was nasopharyngeal. Time of first testing, initially in the month of April and May, was 24 hours after birth for the inborns. For the outborns, as soon as they were admitted. In June, we changed it to at birth and outborns on admission. Subsequent testing for in April and May was at 48 hours. And if the swab was negative, it was repeated after 48 hours. Whereas if the test was positive, as per the previous guidelines, it was repeated only before discharge. Whereas in June till date, what we follow is if the swab is negative, no need to repeat a second swab for these babies. If symptomatic and non-COVID causes are ruled out, then repeat a test. And if the first swab was positive, after 48 hours of first testing, we were repeating. If the baby was very symptomatic, then repeat even the third one prior to discharge. Isolation and feeding policies, as already mentioned, rooming in was and bedding in was encouraged in all. Exclusive breastfeeding, and if while breastfeeding, the mother was advised to take full precaution and ensure on respiratory and hand hygiene. If the mother could not breastfeed for whatever reason, express breast milk would be given. And if she was seriously ill or was not available for some reason, postoperatively donor human milk was given to all such. It was decided when not available, then suitable top milk was advised. Skin to skin care and kangaroo mother care really took us time to explain to all the residents and to our healthcare workers that this is necessary, and we could start it nearly after 1.5 months. These are the pictures of our rooming in and bedding in that is occurring. This is the counseling by our lactation nurse. We are thankful to her for being there all through and encouraging exclusive breastfeeding in the postnatal wards. She's doing the counseling in the NICU. Besides telling them hand and respiratory hygiene, she also tries to give them mental and psychological support, practicing KMC in our NICUs. With that, I would like to hand over the presentation to Dr. Poonam Wade, our Associate Professor in Neonatology.
Baby, 1.4 kg baby was admitted on day of life 2 with respiratory distress. He also got settled. He got settled with antibiotic, and then he was subsequently discharged after 12 days as his weight was less. We have had 4 neonatal deaths. All these 4 babies were COVID negative. In month of May, there were 3 deaths. So 1 baby died of respiratory distress syndrome, and 2 babies had severe perinatal asphyxia with meconium aspiration syndrome. 1 death in month of June was because of congenital diaphragmatic hernia with lung hypoplasia and severe perinatal asphyxia. So overall, our COVID data shows that this infection is mild in neonates, and all these our 10 babies, inborn babies who had tested positive, we could successfully send them home, and this seems to be horizontal transmission. Now I hand over to Dr. Malik Madam.
So from this journey of our COVID mothers that were delivering day in, day out, what were the lessons that we learned, and how is our journey still continuing? We made the best of the situation that we were in. We encouraged our residents and healthcare workers and nurses. That was very, very important. Regular training and upgrading the protocols as they change was another important aspect. And last but not the least, encouraging mothers that it is for no fault of theirs, even if they were positive, to reduce this horizontal transmission. Continues, even though in the depressing world of the pandemic, we have added smiles to over 450 plus COVID positive mothers, which was indeed a very satisfying journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sushma ma'am and Dr. Poonam, for excellent presentation. I think it was really good experience to listen to your journey. Considering the time, we'll just go to the next session, which is from Somaya, and I would like to invite Sujata Kanere to present her talk. Okay, over to you, Sujata.
So we are presenting case series of the patients we've had from 19th of March. and all neonates born to either COVID suspect or COVID positive pregnant women were taken. We use the RT-PCR method strategy using a nasopharyngeal swab. We did the testing either within 24 hours of birth or soon after the mother's test came positive. So far in this period, there were 221 deliveries with 99 neonatal admissions. Symptomatic mothers were 4, whereas positive mothers were only 2. Number of babies tested were a set of twins, so 2 out of 5 babies were tested, and number of positive babies were none. Sick babies were also none. I'll begin with the first case. This symptomatic mother delivered right on arrival, and she'd had fever for 1 day. The report came on day 3 of being positive. The mother was kept in isolation room right from the beginning, and baby was kept with a healthy caretaker with a cradle, on a bed with a cradle outside the isolation room. Feeding was done with EBM after due respiratory and hand hygiene. The mother was shifted to the designated COVID hospital on day 4 because at that time ours was not a COVID hospital in Israel. Then the asymptomatic baby was discharged after immunization on day 4 with a healthy caretaker. We did a daily telephonic follow-up till day 14 and the baby was asymptomatic and fine. So now the second baby who came along, the mother was symptomatic, presented with cough for 1 month, and she had tachypnea. But this worsened on the next day, and therefore the baby was shifted to the ICU for 2 days. We'd expected the report to come positive. However, this mother's report came negative. We managed the baby again the same way with a healthy caregiver as per our protocol, and similar protocol was followed up, and we followed up to 15 days. And the third type was a symptomatic mother who presented with fever and cough. And this child, this baby was normal delivery. The RT-PCR was negative on day 3. Baby was roomed in 6 feet away from the mother with a healthy caretaker. And again, the similar procedure was followed. The last one, this is very interesting because, in the third case, the mother went to ICU. So we had to do a lot of thinking. What should we change? Should we take the baby up to the NICU, keep with the caretaker down in the ward? So a lot of thinking had to go into these various steps. But in this fourth case, the mother delivered twins by LSCS in our hospital, and she was initially COVID positive 1.5 months before delivery in another hospital where she was admitted for fever and cough for 7 days and was tested. But luckily, she tested negative 15 days before delivery. Our concern was, is there vertical transmission? So we admitted these babies into the NICU. This is a designated OBGYN. The button in between the photo purpose, we removed that. We had to make a new NICU. Now, one unit of our NICU, we closed the regular door and made a new door. This got done in 2 days. So we really had to act fast. As you can see here, the twins, here one doctor is looking at the baby and the other twin is being breastfed by the mother. Manpower management was a real challenge. We are short-staffed always, but we had to create 2 teams of doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers for COVID and non-COVID work. So training of doctors, training for donning, doffing of PPE was all done. And luckily, none of our staff or healthcare workers developed COVID infection, hence quarantine wasn't required. Adequate PPE, prophylactic HCQ, and diagnostic facilities were available for staff. And everything began right from the beginning because our management is good. Regular motivation by faculty is what has kept the morale of residents, nursing staff, and healthcare workers high. And their attitude was also very positive, and there was no absenteeism. The challenges we primarily faced were because we were running a parallel COVID and non-COVID services, and therefore infrastructure, staffing, segregation, all needed a lot of working on. But the most important thing is that finances. The patients we cater to found this government prescribed package very expensive. And so the patients prioritized and they only did the mother's testing and they were not willing to test the neonate. Solutions and innovations that we had for the challenges is that we made all these infrastructural changes that I just showed you. And in addition, we had to structurally separate our ward to accommodate the routine NICU, PICU, and ward admissions for the non-COVID patients. And there was some confusion. So to reduce exposure risk, we did a little innovation. We put in a doorbell at the entrance, and that small innovation made a big difference and everybody felt safe. So here you see, here is our little doorbell, which is added newly, and these are donning docking area. Staffing, as we said, we are short-staffed, So what we did is we spaced out our duty schedule so that we could have just twice a week duty for each person. And this way it reduced the exposure as well as stress. PP was not a problem at all. The only thing about affordable care, again, we did our own local thoughts on this, and we decided that we will only admit patients, all of them under general category, initially when they are in the suspect group, keep them in the suspect area, and if the patient turns positive, only then package charges were applied. And this was a major relief to the patient. Thereafter, they agreed to be tested. So what did we learn? This pandemic has taught us to think on our feet, because every day got a new challenging situation, and immediate effective solutions were found and implemented with excellent management support. So we were very well prepared for managing neonates born to suspect a positive COVID mother, and can take on further challenges as the pandemic continues. And this is going to continue. So thank you so much.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having this entire session for experience sharing, because from every center there is so much new to learn. So I'm presenting our experience at the Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College and Sion Hospital. In the pre-COVID era, we've been a very, very busy public hospital. We've had around 10 to 12,000 deliveries per year. We are a 40-bedded neonatal unit, 2,800 to 3,000 admissions per year. We also run the first milk bank in Asia, and we've banked about 1,000 liters of human milk per year. We've always focused on family-centered care and allowed free entry of mothers into the unit. And we've always encouraged mothers to participate in caring for their babies and empower them to look after their tiny little ones. April 2020, and we became the hub of all COVID-19 infections. Maharashtra has been the worst affected state. Mumbai has been the worst affected city, and Dharavi, which is right next to Sion Hospital, has been the epicenter of the pandemic when it started. So we were virtually destined to bear the brunt of all the COVID-19 when it started out in Mumbai. Well, LTMG is not a dedicated COVID hospital. So we had an issue of dealing with mothers who would get referred to our hospital from hotspots and containment zones without any symptoms, without any other issues, or also without a report. So the issues predominantly were delivering these asymptomatic women who would come to us in labor with high risk situations, segregate them, manage their babies, segregate the babies in the postnatal care area, segregate the sick babies in the NICU till we knew for certain what was the COVID status of the mother and then of the baby. We started off with a triage in the labor room. So as according to the early ICMR policies, if the mother resided in the hotspot or containment zone, she was tested. If she was negative, all fine. If she was positive, she had to be, we had to hold her in a separate area in the postnatal care wards till we got the report, because she would come in labor, we would send a swab report, and it would take about 12 to 24 hours before we got the report. Baby continued to stay with the mother. We took care that all the personnel involved wore PPE. The mother was counseled to maintain respiratory and hand hygiene. If the mother tested COVID negative, she would move to the regular PNC and the routine care was followed. If she tested positive, the hospital created a separate COVID postnatal care ward, which had 40 beds. And we shifted the baby as well with the mother, kept the baby with the mother, continued with breastfeeding, continued with all the routine baby care routines. And the baby swab was sent once we got the mother swab. Again, if the baby was negative, the baby continued to stay with the mother. And if the baby was positive but asymptomatic, again, the baby continued to stay with the mother with no change in the management protocol. Once we had a positive baby, monitored these babies for symptoms suggestive of COVID-19 infection, like fever, respiratory distress, etc. The plan was, if the baby develops symptoms, we would shift the baby to the COVID isolation area designed to hold pediatric as well as neonatal patients. If the baby did not show any symptoms of COVID-19, the baby stayed with the mother. In the early part of the pandemic, we did test them on day 5 and then a repeat test on day 10 if they were positive on day 5. If the baby tested negative, again stays with the mother, goes home with the mother. But as per the recent policy where we have stopped testing asymptomatic patients, we just test the baby for the first time after we get the baby's report, and subsequently we do not test the baby if the baby remains asymptomatic. The baby gets discharged with the mother depending on when the mother is planned for discharge. We had around 600 or 600 plus live births in the last 3 months once the pandemic has started. And we've tested about 50 mothers positive in April, which really skyrocketed to 218 in May because the testing policies were very, very liberal. And it's come down to 131 in June because of a restricted testing policy. 4 of these mothers have been symptomatic. The remaining all have been asymptomatic or may have had minor symptoms. We've tested 12 babies positive in the month of May and 4 positive in the month of June, a total of 16 positive babies so far. But all of them have been reasonably asymptomatic. They have all been term babies. They've all been tested 24 hours after birth because that's when we get the mother's report. We've continued to keep them with the mother. We've exclusively breastfed these babies during their hospital stay, and we've very strongly advocated exclusive breastfeeding after discharge. They have been immunized at birth. They've had trivial issues like jaundice, feeding issues, which were addressed in the COVID postnatal area. 25% had mild fever but did not require any treatment. They definitely had raised LDH levels, more than 1,000 international units in all those who we tested for LDH levels. And they were all discharged home with the mother. These are the NICU statistics, and there's a table showing a comparison during the pre and the during COVID pandemic times. The number of live births has more or less remained around 600. NICU admissions have remained around 200, slightly dropped in the month of June. We've had babies of COVID positive mothers coming into the unit. So about 19 of them in April, 62 babies in May, 5 in June. But none of the babies who came to the NICU and were separated from the mother at the time of birth for a reason to be admitted to the unit have tested positive. The mortality rates have been fairly under control, except in the month of May, where we had slightly worse patients, predominantly deaths caused because of perinatal asphyxia due to delayed referrals and delayed transports, and a couple of them because of necrotizing enterocolitis because of shortage of human milk. We have very strongly supported breastfeeding in this pandemic. Mothers are not allowed into the level 3 NICU, but we do allow them to enter the step down unit. They breastfeed their babies, they katori spoon feed their babies, they hold their babies when the nurse feeds them. In the level 3 unit, we encourage them to express their milk and send it to the unit in a katori. We have separate counseling sessions in the COVID postnatal care area so that mothers are encouraged to continue to breastfeed. Human milk banking has suffered quite badly in the pandemic. We have always used pasteurized donor milk for feeding babies who do not have access to their own mother's milk. But collections have remarkably dropped due to early discharge and poor OPD-based collections. Only COVID negative mothers are recruited as donors. And we've also had to restrict feeding of pasteurized DHM to the smaller and more sicker babies. So we've changed our feeding strategy to now feed only babies who are less than 1250 grams. And we've not really had any support from longitudinal donors. This is a graph showing the volume of milk collected and volume of milk dispensed. The blue is the collection and the orange is the dispensed milk. The buffer in the milk bank has reduced from 21 liters in the beginning of April to 3.5 liters in the beginning of July. A lot of things have changed due to the COVID pandemic. A lot of infrastructure changes have taken place. Staff training has had to happen. Our orientation towards approaching patients has changed. So we've had separate PNCs created for COVID and non-COVID patients. We've had a separate holding area in the PNC and NICU for babies whose mothers are positive. Staff we have a separate team working in the COVID areas, which who do not come into the non-COVID areas. All the healthcare workers wear PNC in the postnatal care areas and the holding areas, because with asymptomatic mothers all over, we really do not know who is positive and who is not. Uh, the post-COVID duty off is restricted to just 3 days. It's extremely difficult to work in PPE, especially in the Mumbai climate. So many of them have complained of dehydration, headaches, dizziness, fatigue, malaise. But work has to go on. There have been regular training sessions conducted by the community medicine department. We've had ongoing training sessions for the NICU staff. There's been a lot of fear early on, but with more and more training, people are getting more empowered and they're getting more comfortable working in COVID areas. So multiple challenges because of staff shortage, because of untrained staff, separate areas are being uncomfortable being wearing the PPE, the shortage of supplies because it's not available in the market, ventilator tubings, other consumables. There's been shortage of donor milk, multiple challenges, and I'm sure this meeting is going to open up some options for us to explore after we've heard all the speakers.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Alpana Utture. I'm in charge of the Division of Neonatology at Baijarbai Wadia Hospital for Children. This is an initiative taken by all. Dr. Shakuntala Prabhu, our Medical Director, Baijarbai Wadia, Dr. Sudhara, who's Professor and Head of Department of Pediatrics, Baijarbai Wadia, and Dr. Sanjay Prabhu, who will be speaking later about it. So Wadia Hospital is a public hospital which is managed by the Wadia Trust and gives and receives grant from the MCGM and is affiliated Mumbai. Wadia Hospital has 50-bedded inborn NICU and 155-bedded outborn NICU. Our inborn NICU has 4,500 to 5,000 deliveries a year and has more than 1,500 admissions a year. The outborn unit has more than 1,700 admissions a year. After the onset of the pandemic of COVID-19, the hospital is a dedicated NICU in the Naurul. So this is an observational study of the inborn and the outborn COVID-positive neonates who were admitted to the dedicated COVID NICU from May 2020 to June 2020. The neonates who delivered to COVID-positive mothers were tested for COVID RT-PCR with nasopharyngeal swab sent on day 1 itself as soon as possible after the delivery. All the asymptomatic neonates born to COVID-positive mothers were roomed in along with the mother in a special isolation ward which was newly created by the obstetric department. They were breastfed exclusively. Those requiring NICU care were shifted to a triage in the COVID ward. Here they were tested and then the non-COVID NICU. The outborn COVID-positive neonates were directly admitted to the COVID ward. Next. So we had a total of 560, which the COVID positive were 103 and COVID negative were 460. Of these 103 COVID positive mothers, the neonates underwent RT-PCR. Out of these, 100 neonates tested negative and 3 neonates tested positive. Out of these, ICU admission and 75 were admitted to the postnatal wards. Out of the 3 COVID positive neonates, their diagnosis was, one was asymptomatic, one was a late preterm 34-weeker twin with RDS, and interestingly, the second twin was negative, although the first twin was positive. The third baby was a full term with transient tachypnea of newborn. Now, out of this COVID positive 103 mothers, the previous slide, please. The previous slide, please. Out of these 103 COVID positive mothers, there was 76 who delivered at term and 23 who delivered were preterm. Whereas in the COVID negative 460 mothers, there were 84% who were term and 16% who were preterm. Next. Our outbound data was a total of 10 COVID positive neonates were admitted to the NICU, to the COVID NICU, out of which 9 survived and 1 death was there. And this was an extreme preterm with TAPVC. Out of the 9 who survived, 7 had an alternative diagnosis. There were 4 with respiratory distress, 2 with meconium aspiration, 2 with RDS. There were 2 with seizures, hypoglycemia and hypocalcemia, 1 with hypernatremic dehydration. Out of the 9 who survived, 2 had COVID-like illness. One came with fever and the second one came with lethargy and loose stools. Both had mild illness which recovered within 2 days. Out of these 10 COVID positive neonates we had only 6 mothers who were positive, and in 3 mothers, they were COVID negative. This included a pair of twins. Next. Next. Discharge policy consisted of, if neonates had a mild illness and were asymptomatic for 3 days and they were retesting, all the babies were given immunization, BCG, polio before they were discharged. Rest of the babies, most of the babies with the mothers were discharged when the mothers were discharged, which was usually 10 days after 10 days of admission. So our conclusion was that most neonates detected with COVID-19 had alternative diagnosis and did not show any manifestation of SARS-CoV-19 infection. Rest of the neonates were either asymptomatic or presented with mild symptoms.
I will be talking about the organization of care which we had. We had a unique situation where we have an outbound hospital and an inbound hospital both admitting neonates. Can I have the next? So we have a children's wardia which where all neonates were admitted through the isolation ward unless previously tested, and if the neonate was found to be positive, was transferred to the maternity COVID NICU, which was a dedicated COVID NICU. All mothers were also tested. At the maternity wardia, all mothers were tested beyond 34 weeks of gestation, as was the guidelines during that time. If the mothers were positive, then they were delivered in a separate COVID labor ward and an OT. An OT if the cesarean was required. The OT was separate from the normal OT. The mothers coming in emergency labor without testing were delivered in the suspect COVID labor ward with due precautions and tested. And positive mothers with independent entrance and exit, and no visitor allowed in this positive mother section. Separate sections for COVID positive and created, and all negative neonates requiring NICU care were shifted to the children's wardia NICU. Staff working in the COVID positive zone were separately housed if staying in campus, but they were not many. As in Mumbai, we have most of the staff coming in from their homes, and we had 7 days work and 7 days off shifts. Duty hours were around 6 to 8 hours depending on the availability and the workload of the NICU, and the non-COVID delivery services contain different wing in the maternity hospital. As Dr. Swati has already mentioned, that humidity and heat while using a PPE has caused a lot of dehydration and exhaustion, especially in the COVID NICU where we are using a 90 JSM with double lamination PPE. Now, of late, we have been allowing a change of PPE during the duty once because the staff are sweating a lot because of the humidity and the heat in Mumbai. Initially, there was a lot of shortage of PPEs, but now that has been sorted out. Training of staff, we have 3 assistant professors and junior consultants deputed for duty in both NICU who are supervised by the associate professor and senior consultant or senior consultant. The nurses and cleaning staff had separate training in infection control and donning and doffing. Counseling and empowering sessions conducted for all staff. And at the end of the COVID duty, we used to give a certificate of appreciation and small hygiene to improve their morale and to align them towards attaining our goal. All babies were roomed in with the mother. The COVID positive mothers have separate ward and suspect mothers are in a separate ward. NICU has different sections for suspect and COVID positive, and the building cannot be changed. The alignment wards cannot be changed in the building. So it was a great challenge. We had to segregate the NICU into COVID and non-COVID sections. Training and managing quarantine and preventing a COVID outbreak in the nursery also was a great challenge, and especially the provision of adequate refreshments because of the heat and humidity in Mumbai, and infection control were other challenges. Next, solution innovations and for challenges. We have as Mumbai everybody has pointed out, shortage was severely there because the normal services were also going on along with the COVID services. Changing policies of quarantine, infection control, and testing added to the confusion. We in Mumbai were very fortunate to have a lot of NGOs and entrepreneurs. We have used all protection kits, protection equipment, and the corporation is now providing us now with adequate PPE. We are not recycling any PPE as the norms have not been clearly defined. About Wadia hospitals being heritage, we have very long windows, adequate cross ventilation, and the isolation wards could be easily established with negative pressure in 2 rooms that we have in the NICU. And the brainstorming with the with support of the management helped us a lot. So final points from us are that we have a dedicated COVID team which comprises of the neonatologist, infectious disease specialist, the microbiologist, nurses, and the cleaning staff. A COVID war room where we are supervising, monitoring, surveying, counseling, coordinating. These are senior people who are coordinating the efforts. Both at the we have a pediatric COVID ward as well as a neonatal COVID ward. So we have to do a lot of this work all throughout the day. And in the end, I would just like to say that the COVID mantra is that if the team spirit is high, we will definitely conquer the epidemic. This is one of our COVID warriors who is in the NICU with a baby. And thank you very much.
Good afternoon all. I am Dr. Blonde, Assistant Professor Neonatology at Government Medical College, Aurangabad. Now sharing our experience of perinatal management of neonates born to mothers with COVID-19 in Aurangabad. Under the guidance of Professor Dr. Deshmukh, Head of Department of Neonatology, Government Medical College, Aurangabad. Government Medical College, Aurangabad is a 1200-bedded public hospital which is catering both COVID and non-COVID patients. We have nearly 20,000 deliveries per year and 3,500 newborn admissions per year. Our NICU is 40-bedded level 3 NICU and 10-bedded level 2 NICU, which is exclusive in 1 unit. The first delivery of COVID-19 positive mother was conducted in our hospital on 5th April 2020, and since then there have been almost 63 deliveries till date. With the increasing number of cases in our city, our obstetric department decided to segregate women from hotspot zone and started testing them. This is our flowchart showing all ANC mothers which come from hotspot zone which are admitted in our hospital are subjected to RT-PCR on admission. If she delivers and newborn requires admission, baby is shifted to COVID suspect NICU. If baby doesn't require admission, baby is kept with mother in the COVID suspect ward. If mother RT-PCR comes positive, mother is shifted to COVID positive baby. And if RT-PCR comes negative, the mother is shifted to regular PLC non-COVID ward. If for a baby for COVID positive mother, if admission is indicated, the baby goes to COVID positive NICU. There, the baby is managed according to any protocol. Feeding is given with express breastfeed or formula feeds. We tested baby on day 1 or as soon as the mother starts positive, and second swab on day 5 or if symptoms are between. If a baby from positive mother doesn't need admission, baby is shifted with mother to the baby is given breastfeeding, direct breastfeeding with proper respiratory and hand hygiene, and baby is kept in a baby trolley 6 feet away from the mother after feeding. Antenatal characteristics. Till now we have 63 deliveries. Of that, 30 mothers were positive before delivery and 50 patients came after delivery. From hotspot zone till date, we screened 91 women, and of that, 88 were positive and 63 were delivered. Most common ANC complication we saw was preeclampsia in 10% cases and ERI in 8% cases. 25% cases required LSCS for obstetric indications. One mother with HIV positive developed COVID and she subsequently recovered. We have 58 live births and 5 stillbirths in 63 deliveries. One COVID positive mother developed symptoms postnatal on day 11 with fever and breathlessness, and she was shifted to COVID building and she expired despite adequate measures. Neonatal course, till date we have 58 babies born with COVID positive in them. Of that, 12% were preterm and 30% were newborn babies. 22 babies were needed an ICU admission for neonatal morbidities like prematurity, respiratory distress syndrome, transient tachycardia, asphyxia, preterm twins, and TRO. 7 babies had distress. 2 of them had RDS, required surfactant, 5 were TTO. 1 baby required mechanical ventilation. 5 babies were managed on CPAP. Chest X-ray was done in all babies who had distress, suggestive of RDS, transient tachycardia, and meconium expressive syndrome, none of COVID. Regarding feeding, those babies were shifted, 56. Of that, 29 were babies were breastfed, and 6 for 6 babies, the relatives were not ready to keep the baby with mother, so they shifted the baby to the unexposed relatives, and the baby was fed with formula. The baby came for follow-up for second swab and found negative. Of these 58, we found 4 babies who were positive at 6%. 2 babies had first swab positive at second, and 2 babies had second swab positive. All these positive babies were with mother for at least 12 hours before separation. 1 positive baby had symptoms of lethargy, feed on day 5. The sepsis screen was positive, so we administered antibiotics and to be approved and discharged. Till date, we discharged 50 babies after day 10 with mother, after documenting 2 swab negative. We have 3 deaths likely to be non-COVID because all were RT-PCR negative. 1 baby had severe perineal asphyxia with meconium expressive syndrome, required mechanical ventilation for 4 days, and the baby expired after 4 days. The rest 2 babies were with mother in postnatal ward, had milk aspiration on day 3, and they expired. For further experience sharing, I would like to invite Professor Head.
First of all, at the outset, I am thankful to organizers of this unique conference of perinatal experience sharing. And I'm especially thankful to Devrari sir, Praveen Kumar sir, and very good evening, Girish Gupta sir, Dr. Deepak. As far as this experience of managing the babies with COVID is concerned, in Aurangabad, there was a unique situation that initially we were not testing all the mothers or even the suspect mothers. So we had first mother picked up in March, and in between for 15 days or 3 weeks, we did not pick up any positive mother. And then the policy was changed in the last week of April to screen all mothers from the hotspot zone or the containment zones. And from 20th April onwards, there were almost 700 mothers were screened. And out of those, as we had seen, 88 mothers turned out to be positive. Few of them were ANC mothers. So when that making arrangements for the neonates was concerned, for us it was a big unknown and big uncertainty was there in every area. We are not sure as to how to manage these babies, where to manage these babies, what about the separation and segregation of the babies, separation of the staff. And we have precipitated it down to some 3 or 4 areas. I don't know whether this will be the final thing because it keeps on changing. And the babies we segregated in 4 areas to start with. In non-COVID NICU, which we are running, because ours is a very big hospital in the region, the biggest in the region, almost catering to 7-8 districts. And we cater to 20,000 deliveries per annum. And we have 3,500 admissions in our NICU. So unfortunately, we have to run the non-COVID services also, unlike some of the hospitals which were dedicated COVID hospitals, converted into dedicated COVID hospitals. So we had to cater to non-COVID babies also, which were in large number. So we continued with that. Then there were unstable babies who were delivered to women from hotspot zone. They may or may not be positive. Then that was another separate area. And all positive babies who were unstable, we had a makeshift or repurposed COVID NICU. Now, let me tell you this repurposing of the NICU, COVID NICU, it's a poor term we can use as far as repurposing or making changes to infrastructure is concerned, because there are many things which were not available or at the level of administration, maybe even at the level of, unfortunately, obstetricians. The neonatal care was not a concern when they decided to deliver the mothers. And the fourth area was for the babies who were stable with COVID positive and negative. Those babies were kept with the PNC ward with the mother. Till today, we didn't come across COVID positive, unstable baby to be admitted in COVID NICU. Then the next problem was, or the question was, rooming in. Out of the 58 babies, 36 stable babies were shifted with mothers in the PNC. Now this initially met with lot of resistance. Initial 6 or 8 babies, we totally separated the baby irrespective of whether baby needed NICU admission or any close supervision. 6 or 8 babies we had to separate at birth. That created lot of problems for us, because we had to counsel everyone. We had to manage 1 or 2 babies were there. For that, we had to keep a staff, feed the babies only, because otherwise they were stable. So, but after 6 or 8 babies, we shifted to direct breastfeeding. By that time, the policy were keeping on changing, though the CPG guidelines were mentioning about giving breastfeeding, but they were not emphatic. And the WHO came a little late into the picture with giving breastfeeding. But the problem with we people in government, working in government setup, is we had to listen to the ICMR when we had to listen to the administration. So there was a lot of concern around giving babies direct breastfeeding. So it was avoided because a lot of pressure was there. But once we decided, then we started with counseling the relatives. Unfortunately, many of the relatives were not available. We counseled them on phone because they decided whether baby should be shifted with mother or not many a times. So in one case, we had to speak to 14 relatives on phone to convince the relatives that this baby is better off with breastfeeding than non-breastfeeding. For rooming in, we kept the babies in the PNC ward with the baby trolleys by the bedside with a 6 feet distance. Of the 36 babies, 29 babies were expected. Was mentioned by Atul, were not willing to keep the baby with the mother even after counseling. 4 babies were tested who tested positive. They tested positive after 12 hours of initial breastfeeding, because what happens is in our setup, in a hotspot delivery occurs in some place, then the mother is tested at the time of admission. The report comes by evening. By that time, it is usually 12 to 14 hours. Till that time, the baby stays with the mother. But once the mother's report comes as positive, we are separating. So those 4 babies which were positive in our follow-up, they were likely horizontal transmission, though it is a murky area. As far as managing the healthcare workers was concerned, again, a big issue with us being a separate department in the as a super specialty department. Already we were facing manpower shortages, and we had to manage non-COVID babies also. But we had to separate residents and faculties as well as nurses. Residents were given weekly rotations without giving them off because of manpower constraints. Nursing staffs we could separate, but those nursing staffs were taken out from our old number of staffs only. So the non-COVID staff was reduced and they were reposted into the COVID areas. all healthcare workers, we gave them training regularly with IPC. Unfortunately, 2 residents who were working in the COVID PNC and the NICU, they tested positive. But they were staying in the hostel. There was a lot of mixing, and there were other residents who were working in adult COVID. They were also staying with them. Fortunately, they are all of them, 2 of them, they have recovered very well. Additionally, we face challenges of having no designated space for newborn care, and this again I may mention, and I have always fought with the administration, fought with the obstetricians, that there is no consideration for babies whenever they decide the place of delivery, be it COVID or non-COVID. And that created a lot of chasing thing for us because of the changing obstetric policies. We had to make a chasing game or play a chasing game. Wherever they go, we had to run, we had to make an arrangement for the newborn care corner, we had to make arrangement for managing the babies in the NICU, we had to make arrangement for the PNC. Then lack of workforce was a big issue which I mentioned. There was frequent change of guidelines, not only there were no national guidelines or ICMR guidelines which were very clear as far as the neonates are concerned. But even CPG, we had to do 2 or 3 revisions. Our WHO was not very clear as far as guidelines of feeding the baby is concerned. There was a lot of apprehension in mothers, relatives, and healthcare staff. That was a big issue, and it still persists to be an issue. And financial constraints not only at the level of relatives, but also at the level of the institution, because a lot of these funds now, they have been diverted to the COVID, taking away from the non-COVID area. I just want to mention about challenges faced in non-COVID services. There is an increasing constraint on existing resources like human resource, space, and infrastructure. Mother-based care has taken a beating. One, because of there was no clear policy as to whether we should be screening all mothers who will be allowed to enter into NICU, because my unit policy is a mother-based care, where we allow the mothers to enter into the NICU. Then the spacing out, and then the KMC has taken a beating. Let me be very honest. The KMC is not taking place as it was before the pre-COVID era. And a lot of family constraints are there because the relatives, most of the times, either they are quarantined or they are not allowed to enter, and so they are not willing or able to stay longer. And many of the babies are discharged very early, and they went against medical advice. Follow-up, ROP, hearing, immunization, all this have come to almost a standstill. Let me be very honest, because we tried to do follow-up on telephone because the numbers were somewhere somebody else's, and then the mother was staying with somebody else. So that was not feasible. Another issue which needs to be addressed is psychological effects, not only on the mothers, but also on the healthcare workers, which is a very big issue. A lot of psychological issues like anxiety, many of them feel depressed. They are not in connection or communication. So this needs to be addressed not only in short term, but also in the long term. Lot of moral and ethical dilemmas come up every day in terms of managing the babies, in terms of arranging the duties. And let me confess, as there is a disruption of medical training and education, particularly our departments, which are the new departments, it's a big beating. My message to all my friends, colleagues is, we need to plan ahead and long term, and we must establish a new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Deshmukh. It has been a wonderful narration of your experience and how simply you have stated and brought out some things which are so much fundamental and very touched. And for all the speakers, I wish to give a standing ovation the way all the speakers of this session have conveyed their messages and have ran through the program for a situation where we did not know anything and almost zero, I feel and believe that all the people who have presented and represented their institution, they have all become heroes. And I would ask President NNF that for all such units which are doing wonderful job, we should have some mechanisms to give them recognition so that they do things with more motivation. Now, a couple of quick remarks, and I will, as the organizer, have allowed me to only ask 2 questions. As Dr. Deshmukh has mentioned, the huge challenge is a psychological challenge for everyone. Now, I would be keen to know that is any unit or has any unit used a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist in the care of COVID? Any unit from Maharashtra? And if yes, then in what way? Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm Dr. Malik speaking from Nair.
Please go ahead, Professor Malik. Go ahead.
Sir, for the last 2 weeks, we have started even online palliative-like care, where we are talking to the mothers through the help of Tata Memorial Hospital. We have taken their clinical psychologists as well as people who are looking into palliative care, and they're talking to the COVID positive, not just the neonatal mothers, but even to, mothers of the neonates, but also to the mothers of our pediatric patients that are admitted. So we started 2 weeks back on this online virtual palliation therapy.
This is a brilliant, Professor Malik. I would be also keen to know for the healthcare workers, because our healthcare workers, the nurses and the residents, they undergo tremendous stress, mental stress.
Yes.
Have we addressed them in some manner? Anyone?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that we are having regularly. We have some very good people in the psychiatry department who are conducting these stress, stress release and stress-free classes for postgraduates, for senior staff members, and other healthcare workers. So both the departments, there are 2 departments that are really looking into it. One is the Department of Psychiatry, and we have a few people from our physiotherapy department who are having these programs. And every week, whether it is just drawing, even now we have started on online, relaxation therapy classes are going on.
Yeah. May I say something?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. As far as KM is concerned, our psychiatry department is doing a study, and they are contacting all the healthcare workers, means faculty and residents, they have a questionnaire, and soon they will be publishing their result, which is related to the stress during COVID pandemic. Secondly, initially, of course, the food was provided to the residents through the Taj Group to the Tata Trust and Taj Group of hotels. So the residents were made comfortable. We have our KM hospital has given them the dry fruits. They have given them the protein bars. They have given them lunch. And in our department, we have provided dinner to our residents for the month of all 3 months. We stopped it at end of June. So we department provided dinner to the resident doctors. We also, promote them and motivate them. And our occupational therapy department is also conducting this relaxation programs for the faculty and those who are interested. So this is what is being done at KM Hospital.
Very nice to have these information.
Can I come in, sir?
Please
Gupta,
go ahead.
sir.
Yeah, please go ahead, Lakshmikant. Yeah.
Sir, I just want to mention that this is a very unique situation we are facing. Even in the faculties, there are many with comorbidities and they are worried about their own safety.
Yeah.
And they are totally disconnected from the floor. Let me be very honest in confessing this. What is happening on the floor, because even at the level of residents or healthcare workers, there is a human touch is lost, which is the very key of the neonatal care or any health care. And the closeness and the communication has taken a beating. And I don't know how early this is going to have a lot of impact.
Thank you.
Can I add something? I'm Dr. Sujata.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Sujata.
We have a very small department, and what we did is we made them all feel like they're part of the family. So every morning, the days we don't go, we do a video call with everybody, with the nurses, with the residents, and of course, every week we take goodies from a shop nearby, so that everybody gets 4 packets of nice stuff to eat through the week. And this is just personalized in the department, and they really feel so good, and they feel absolutely motivated, and they feel happy. And I think that is one of the reasons we've not had any problems. We shifted them up into the duty rooms beyond our ward where we have space, so that they are not exposed to all the others who are running into the major COVID areas. So I think each one has to individually think of some innovative ways to keep our people happy and safe also.
I think you have conveyed very well, because the challenges which
And
we are
I
having.
had a little may I just add one thing? I had a little advantage because Dr. Varsha Phadke, who is professor of our department, who was HOD before me, is currently the dean. So I got all the things also very fast for infrastructure and all.
I wish everyone is so fortunate. But the bottom line is coming. Bottom line is this, that we are all having challenges, and we are creating our own solutions. And what this platform is giving is not giving just a platform, but our local solutions, that we are all becoming vocal. And it is required that we must share such experiences which are very, very special. I think time is short, very encouraging. I'll close the session now. Thank you very much. Thank you, organizer, for giving me a chance. Also thanking on behalf of Karen More to all of you. Thank you very much.